Hey, what's going on out there? Today, I want to do a tutorial talking about how to set up your studio monitors. So, there's a lot of questions and a lot of comments that have come in about the way that I have my studio monitors oriented, meaning I have them sitting on their sides and I have the tweeters on the outside with the sub or the low frequency driver more towards the middle of the listening field for me. So a lot of people have been commenting and saying that that's incorrect. And I want to tell you why I do that and why it's beneficial to me and why it may be beneficial to you. And then also tell you about a couple of other just setup tips in calibrating your studio monitors that will help you to get better mixes and hopefully help things translate better for you. So let's jump in, and I just want to talk a little bit about the orientation and kind of the science behind why I think that works better for me. All right, so let me just tell you a little bit more about why I orient the speakers this way. This kind of started by mistake. I had a pair of Event TR8 monitors, and not knowing any better, I put the low frequency driver in the middle and the tweeter on the outside, just as I have them set up now, just not knowing that that wasn't really the standard way of doing it. And I kept it this way for a couple of years, and then I think somebody mentioned it to me. They were like, a lot of the manuals for speakers and just the general kind of practice is that you put the low frequency driver on the outside. And so I said, oh, well, I didn't know any better. So I actually tried to switch it, later on, and just really didn't like the results I was getting. And so I tried to figure out, is this something that I just got used to, or is there something, actually happening by switching it, that there's a reason why I prefer this? And there definitely is a reason, and it's that when you're mixing or when you're working with the stereo field, generally your low frequency information you want it to be more mono and smack dab in the center of the stereo field versus your mids and highs. That's what's going to kind of open up the stereo field and give you width. You don't want a wide low frequency signal. It doesn't translate well, and frankly, it's not really possible to hear a lot of those lows kind of in a stereo sense, if you will. So what it's doing is it's just anchoring those low frequencies more in the center of the spectrum from my listening position, and then it's giving me a better spatial spread of the mids and the highs. And I would encourage you to try this. I also think that it helps me mix vocals. Vocals sound just better to me in terms of the stereo field for mixing purposes this way. And I would encourage you to try both and see which one you like better. I have a feeling that when you hear this and you get used to it, it does really open things up. And there's a reason why I mix with the low frequency drivers in the more towards the middle versus the tweeters on the outside. So hope that helps explain my reasoning there. And again, I encourage you to try this just to see which one you prefer. All right, everybody. So we've got the monitor turned around, and this is my main monitor set, and this is the Event 2030. They're a three-way monitor system. So I just want to talk a little bit about your connections and also a couple of the controls back here, and the way that you can get everything optimal for your monitoring. So the first thing I want to talk about is this connection right here. This is going to be an XLR, a balanced XLR input. Now you may have an XLR input, a TRS input, or you may just have a TRS input. In this case, I just have a balanced XLR input. This, in my eyes, for monitoring is really the best connection type. I think that an XLR connection is just the most solid. And also, you want to make sure with your monitors to use a balanced cable. Now, if you don't use a balanced cable, what's going to happen is potentially you're going to be dealing with a lot of noise issues, possibly some interference coming from your other instruments. So it's always best to use a balanced, high quality cable. You're going to get a lot better results with that. So then let's talk about our controls down here. These are pretty standard controls that you're going to see on most monitors. Now, some monitors are not going to have high frequency shelf, low frequency shelf, or even a gain control in a lot of cases. But generally speaking, you're going to see some basic stuff like this. With the gain, I always just leave this in the center on both monitors so it's consistent, and I can control the levels with my monitor controller. Now, in terms of the high frequency shelf and the low frequency shelf, you're going to want to mess with these a little bit and figure out, what works best for you. Now, this varies according to a number of different things. First of all, you need to kind of get a feel for the room you're in. Some rooms are going to kind of eat up high frequency information more than others, and it's the same as low frequency information. For instance, I used to mix in a very small room, and the low frequencies were extremely difficult to hear. So this would be something that I would adjust. In that case, in a small room, I would probably turn the low frequencies up so that that would compensate for a mix whenever I'm in another environment. In terms of the way I have these set up and my personal taste, I like to do a high frequency boost, and that just sounds the best to me for these particular speakers. They market monitors as flat frequency response. I don't think that any of them are completely flat, and I don't think these speakers are flat per se. So I like the sound of boosting the highs on these particular speakers. They have a pretty good low frequency response, a lot of low end, especially considering that they're ported. So I just like to compensate a little bit there to boost, and I've just found that things translate the best with my high frequency boosted 3 dB on these speakers. So it's going to vary for you. You're going to want to experiment a little bit and see what works best in your room, to your ears, and for your particular monitors. So let's jump in and talk about how you can set up more than one set of monitors and how that can work to your advantage. So the last thing I want to talk about is the benefit of having more than one set of monitors. So you'll see in my case, I have the Event 2030 as my main, and then my B set of monitors is the Yamaha NS10, which is kind of a studio staple. And frankly, they're not that great as speakers, but they do translate really well. And specifically, they are very good at telling you if a vocal is sitting correctly. There's just something about the NS10 that really presents a vocal in a good way in terms of getting an accurate mix. So I've used them in other studios and I just got used to them, but by no means do you need the NS10 at all, or even as a B monitor. There are plenty of other smaller monitors that would work and do the same thing for you. The best thing that you can do in terms of getting a good set of B monitors is to find something that contrasts your main monitors very well. So you don't want to get another set of 8-inch monitors if 8-inch monitors are your main set. You want to have something that's going to give you a nice perspective from both ends. And for me, the Event 2030 is more of a low-end, heavy, very pleasing sound. And so the NS10 is the opposite. They're very harsh, very mid-heavy, almost no bass. So they simulate a lot of common like consumer listening environments. So that's why I like the NS10, and that's really the mindset that you want to have when you're picking out a B monitor. So the other great thing about having more than one set of monitor, if you have a monitor controller, is that you can switch between the two monitors on the fly. And this is great when you're mixing and you just need to get a different perspective from the monitors you're listening on. You can just switch back and forth, and that's the way I have these set up. So again, it's very helpful to pick up different issues that maybe I wouldn't hear on one set of monitors versus the other. So just going back and forth is very, very helpful. Do you need two sets of monitors? Absolutely not. Is it very helpful? Yes. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and we will talk to you soon.